All right. I think we are live and we are ready to go. Welcome, everyone. We are here with some amazing women who are graduates, some long-term graduates, veterans, if you will, of the Loyo Method coaching experience and mentorship program. I'm super excited to have Melanie, Nikki, and Jennifer here. And we're going to have a conversation. I'm actually going to bring up the live stream right now, just so if anybody who's watching live has questions, you guys can absolutely pop them into the comments. So let me just make sure I can see the comments coming in. All right. All right. I think that is good. Nope, that's okay. Click to expand. There we go. All right, cool. Sorry, guys. All right, hello. All right, Susan says hello, guys. If you're watching live, say hi. If you're watching the replay, type hashtag replay. If you have questions as we go along, definitely say hi and pop your questions in. So let's get started. I'm just going to kind of arbitrarily have this conversation with you guys and kind of go around the room and we can talk a little bit about your successes, your transformations, your challenges, a little bit about where you're at right now, and really your experience over, the last, for some of you, maybe 6 months to a year, or for others, it could have been 2+ years. So let's start with Melanie. Hi.
Hello.
Let's talk about your biggest challenges before you joined the Loyo Method. And when was it when you joined? I think it was about a year ago, right?
It was just before Christmas.
Okay, yeah, we're coming up to a year. And what would you say were some of the biggest struggles and challenges and why you ended up on this journey?
Well, right away, what appealed to me was it happened to be a season of time where I was just at my wit's end. Something needed to change. I had been struggling for quite a while. And you just get to these points where you think I have to stop struggling. This can't just be normal life. So that's where I was at. It was meant to be that you came across my screen. And I really wanted the program. I really wanted help. But right away, the biggest block was, well, to spend an amount of money on a program. I've been there, done that, didn't get very far. So it was all the previous failures, all the little quick things I tried, all the fads that I jumped onto that never really got me anywhere. And so your brain automatically goes, well, is it just going to be another one of those? You hope it works, and it didn't work at all. So I felt concerned about that, obviously. And then if I'm going to spend money towards this, then you have that extra stress. So that was a giant block. But I wanted to change and push myself more than I was afraid. And most of the time in my life, fear was like the decider for me. Like I would look at a topic and I would decide through fear. And I was fed up of that stuff too. And so it just kind of came all to a head where, darn it, I really do want to change, and I'm going to push myself and pay this and try this and believe in myself, which was really hard to just say, okay, this time is going to be different because I'm going to make sure it's different. So there was already a lot of head work happening before anything was paid and got started. And you just kind of stepped in and guided me when I was real doubtful. And that was at the beginning, that giant block. For some people, it might be like, sure, I'll send an e-transfer, let's start. But for me, it was this giant hindering. I almost didn't get going. And I'm so grateful that that I did get going and I did push. And so if anybody's thinking, I can't, I always fail, dig deep and push, because to make that try your final try, the one that will work, you got to dig really deep and want it. That's the only way I can see that it actually works out. So for me, that's how it unfolded.
I love that. I'm going to hop around for a sec because I love this concept of, fear and skepticism. And I know, Nikki, there was a lot of fear. Talk to me about where you were with your fears way back when.
Yeah. So I would say, like, when I joined your program, it was the mindset piece for me. Like, I knew I needed to lose weight, but I also knew I couldn't do that without changing my mindset around that. But I not only had fear of failure, I also had fear of success. So that's where I really struggle, because to me, what was in between, like, that both ends of the spectrum, right? So if I failed, oh gosh, people would judge me. If I was successful, how was I going to maintain this facade? So I had a lot of mindset work to do around those fears that continued to pop up time in the program. And even to this day, I still work on it, right? It's a never-ending circle, but changing that whole mindset piece around it and actually liking what I see in the mirror now and being nice to myself, that was my biggest hurdle. Like, I had a really hard time saying nice things to myself. And I heard on this podcast one time, like, I don't know, somebody was talking, like, they were bashing themselves, like it was a friend talking to a friend. And the one girl says to her, quit talking about my friend like that. And it hit me. And I was like, why am I talking to myself like that? So really changing that mindset around myself and my fears and failures that I've had in the past before.
I love it. I love it. Jennifer, welcome.
Hi, it's been a while.
It has been a while. Jennifer is a graduate. We actually had to look this up. She graduated in February of 2022. So it has been at least a solid year and a half since you graduated the program, which is awesome. And we were chatting before about all of her, successes recently, which we'll get into in a second. Jennifer, what was your biggest challenge before you joined this program? Like, why'd you come through the doors?
Well, I think, kind of to echo earlier sentiments, I was just fed up. I wanted to feel better. I was ready for a change, and wasn't sure exactly how to get there or what I needed to do. But when I decided to make an investment in myself, it paid off in the long run. And when you realize that's a very small investment compared to the cost of all the prescription medicines I was taking, the horrible diet, the doctor visits, I could go on and on about that, but it was
tell me what those challenges were, like, specifically, so that we know sort of where you were and where you are now.
I was overweight. I was pre-diabetic. My cholesterol was through the roof, high blood pressure, thyroid problems, joint problems, I don't know, brain fog. Should have written a list, but I had it all. I was just barely getting by day to day. And like Melanie said earlier, there has to be more to life than this, than going through day to day, just struggling to make it to bedtime and feeling yucky the whole time doing it.
Yeah. And I'm sure lots of people can appreciate that. It's, life has a lot of challenges, and, add the constant stressors of health concerns and weight loss challenges of going on one diet after the next, and how emotionally exhausting that becomes. And, it's the doctor's appointments, right? It's exhausting. And then I believe we have 3 moms here. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Add on kids and, when you were in the program, Jennifer, it was like probably mid-pandemic, like kind of we're still sort of like dealing with pandemic
Mhm.
stressors and like working from home, and there's, you know, stress becomes that factor that many people don't realize has such a significant piece, such significant effect on why we store and hold on to body fat with all its might. You know, and we're going to talk about this in our challenge next week, our crush cravings and emotional eating challenge. But stress, my gosh, it's a disruptor. It's a hormone disruptor it's a weight barrier. And we could be doing all the right things and eating all the healthy foods. And if we have a high stress job, if we have stressful lives, if we aren't managing our stress, if we're stressing over weight, if we're stressing in our mind, if we're stressing about, you know, whatever comes up for you, if we're constantly fat bashing ourselves, that's a stressor. And learning how to release that, you know, is a real huge piece of the puzzle. Nikki, I'm curious, you know, how you made that shift. You know, tell me about some of your successes. You know, you went from lots of self-loathing, self-bashing, you know, negative self-talk, negative body image, and now you can look in the mirror and be like, you know, I love you and you're beautiful and all of the things. So tell us some of your successes in terms of how you got there.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that really resonated with me was the why. Like, why am I doing this, right? And I've done other programs or diets where they've asked you what your why is, but what helped me was not only having that assignment to like look into it, but also like having you to push me a little bit. Like, you weren't going to take my surface level answer, right? Like, I've always and forever said my kids are my why. And although I love them, they aren't my why. Like, yes, I want to be around for them, but like, I needed to do for me. And I needed to dig deep enough and be pushed hard to realize that I was the real reason behind it. And if I couldn't love myself, how was I going to help or love anybody else? So that was a huge piece to my puzzle, and really like going and evaluating it. And it wasn't the first time I did it. It was pushing myself, continuously asking myself, continuously having you push me a little bit more and really get to the core reason of why I was going to do this program. And that's what helped me be successful in it.
What are you most proud of in terms of your wins? We like to talk wins, right? This is a big part of our, you know, our experience is finding all of the positive, shifting how we're thinking into positive mindsets, you know, finding wins, finding silver linings in our really shitty day, you know, building on positive momentums, one little win at a time. So we talk about wins all the time. We celebrate wins all of the time. One of my favorite things to do is celebrate wins and share wins and you know, uplift each other. So talk to me about your wins and the things that you're most proud of.
Yeah. I would say throughout the program, my biggest win was sticking to it, because I know I'm not the only one for a program and didn't finish it. So I was able to truly be engaged throughout the whole program. And what helped me with that is you and the community. Melanie and I were in the same group. So those connections outside of even just the weekly call that we had was really helpful. And I would say like long-term win for me is learning to clear my calendar for me. And I like to give everybody else my time. And when I didn't really thought about it, it's like, I want to help people. That's my nature, right? And I thought by doing all these different things and saying yes to my husband and my kids and my friends and my people and all these things that did fill my cup in some relation, I still wasn't feeling full at the end of the day. So when I started to really clear out my calendar and say, you know what, actually, I'm going to go take time for myself and go for a walk, or I'm going to go do some stretches or exercises or take a bath, or I can play with you later. And that is just fine. Like really putting myself first and taking time for me and continuing to do that has win. You were talking about stress before, and all I could think about is stressing over stress, right? Like that's my biggest stressor. I stress over the stress I have. And when I started to clear my calendar for me, it's like, I normally would feel stressed in this situation and I don't right now. Like I don't feel that tight chest and my back aches and all the pains I used to have, because that was my body's way of saying like, hey, you need to let it go. But I didn't know that. And now I've done this and started to really focus and my calendar for I don't have any of that anymore.
I love it. How did you make the shifts that you can build that positive body image for yourself and look at yourself in the mirror in a different way?
Yeah. So just to take you back a little bit, before I met my husband 13 years ago now, I was probably in the best shape of my life. I loved my body. I was running. I was feeling good. I was probably the healthiest I'd ever even in my whole life, I'll say. And I got pregnant very quickly with him and had my first baby, put on 80 pounds. And immediately after I had my first son, I started hating my body. It was just constant negative. Like, I have to get this weight off. Like we were getting married and I didn't want to look like this in my wedding. And like all these things started creeping in. And for 12 years, because then I had 2 more boys after that, I continued this thought process and continued to go down these rabbit holes of things that would work for me. And I made the shift after I started in your program and really started to write down things, right? And like, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of like, write it as if it's already happened. So writing down affirmations or writing things down like, I am the healthiest I've ever been. I am strong. I am beautiful. I am like writing these things and start putting these thoughts in my head, these positive thoughts. And every time a negative thought came up, I'd think to myself, like, okay, now you got to tell yourself 3 things positive. Like I do this with my kids too. Like they come home, they tell me school sucks. I'm like, okay, tell me 3 great things about why school was great today. Like learning to shift your mindset in those moments. And then those negative moments come less and less because your brain will automatically start going to those more positive thoughts. And it's so funny because I went and bought a new pair of jeans this weekend because I actually have to travel for work. And I was like, I need a pair of jeans because I just want something fresh and like I want to look good. And I walked in the house and we have like a mirror, like right when you walk in my back door. And I was like, oh, my butt actually looks kind of good. Like it was like I caught a glimpse and I was like, oh, I actually like how it's starting to look. And like I felt really good about that. And like my husband constantly tells me all the time, like, you're beautiful and like, you're great and all these things. Right. And it's like, I now am actually starting to believe him and I say these things and I write them as if I'm already there and I'm happy. And, so just changing that mindset around those negative comments, I was telling myself.
I love that. And I'm sure you guys remember, because I know we talk about this so much on coaching calls, but the concept of, and for anyone who watches, this is like the best way I can do this. For anyone who watches Yellowstone or like that whole series of, it was 1884, 1886, something, 1923. And they had the carriages and the horses and the buggy, and they're going, they're making the trek on the Oregon Trail. And, there's like a trail. There's actually a trail because all the people and all the wagons that have indented into the dirt, and these grooves in the dirt are so indented that the wagon's just going to naturally go down that path. That's our negative mindset. Yeah. It just so easily takes that path because we've trained it to do so for so long. It's so like the groove is so deep. Yet that little horse and that little buggy, it could go the other way. It just, it has to try. And then it has to, have another little horse and buggy follow, and then another little horse and buggy follow. And soon, sooner than not, eventually you could build a new pathway. And that's what we do. We do so much of this shift from one set of way of thinking. And this could be thinking about body image. It could be thinking around food. It could be thinking about, self-love. It could be thinking about emotional eating behaviors. It could be shame and guilt around eating. I mean, there's so many ways that we can shift the way that our neurons actually can rewire themselves. It's an amazing thing that you can watch in your brain. Your neurons can shift and build new neural pathways. So that's awesome. Let's kind of switch gears. I'm just going to kind of go back to Melanie for a second. And I would love to hear about your journey, your transformation, your successes, sort of, where are you at? Where are you at today?
Where am I at today? Well, when I graduated Loyo, I felt like I had a really good toolbox and a really good, comfortable understanding of just how to proceed in ways that work and ways that don't use those ways anymore. They never worked. And so I was able to go forward. I really missed the group, and I actually had a little anxiety, like, oh, how am I going to do this without my weekly calls and Jessica's push and stuff like that. And I was really proud of myself, and I still am really proud of myself how I pushed. I learned through the program to just break it down into manageable pieces and apply what you're learning, the tools that I was given, and just keep waking up and doing it. And a really big change for me during was, it sounds so cliche that, oh, it was a mindset change. It sounds so intelligent, but it really was just something happened deep down. We call it the mindset, but it also felt for me like the heart set. Like I had a change of heart. Like, this isn't just about teach me what I need to do so I'm not so heavy. Teach me what I need to do so that I can stop this insanity. It's like, teach me to start loving myself and making better decisions, and then help me understand why that decision serves me well. I didn't know that cravings that ran my life, my family's life, that you can look at them and understand them, and they're from your hormones. Your hormones are involved in that. I had epiphany after epiphany of like, oh, well, no wonder it's been so darn hard. No wonder I failed that time. And I was able to just let some crap go and understand it logically, medically, and be like, that's why I failed. It's not me. It's not just me. And apply all of that day in and day out. And even now, I still choose just on my plate, what's the decision I'm about to make? Is this going to serve me? Do I really want this? Yes, I really want this. And it was really darn good. And that's okay too. And just have a balance back and forth. I was so severe and narrow previously about food and my feelings about food. And I just lived in that little bubble. And so I was able to burst out of that bubble through the program. And although it's not anywhere near perfect, I've just continued. I don't have any giant, fantastic report other than I'm just continuing on to be awesome. Because I realized then I've always have been. And damn it, I've wasted some time. And so I'm going to push. And so I'm continuing to do that now. Exactly what you taught me and what I received, I'm just continuing on. So what's the big specific win? Well, it's
I
just
know, I was gonna
that
say,
is the
Melanie,
win.
you are too
That
humble,
is
my
the
dear.
win.
You are too humble. I want you to celebrate your success publicly if you're comfortable with
Yeah.
that, because you have had very specific successes that
Yeah.
you're very humble, and I love it. And that's what I love
Yeah.
and appreciate about you. But I want to celebrate you. And I know Nikki knows your successes because you guys did know each other. And I know you've shared them before, but for those who haven't heard your story, like, share. Go ahead.
Well, I was really heavy in diabetic since I was really young. And when you live a diabetic life, you have a whole bunch of other, the doctors call it comorbidities. I hate they use the word morbid and all of that, because that's how heavy and sick I was, that it was affecting all these other parts of my life. And I just saw myself as this sick, fat person. And with the shift, all of that just went on a different path. So yes, I lost pounds. I lost weight because I wasn't just coping with food. I was thinking through the food. I literally sometimes would have like a treat, a snack, junk in my hand and be like, but I want it so bad. It's all I've ever known. And had like real emotional turmoil. Coping for so long is hard to let it go and look at the food and say, I don't need that. That actually doesn't even taste very good. It's not going to get me to my goal at all. And I do that now. And so I lost weight. I'm maintaining a 36-pound weight loss. My A1C went down, which when you're diabetic young, it's all the doctor ever talks about is that A1C number. And I wasn't really focusing on that specifically, but whoops, that went down drastically. And actually, I'll tell you this, just yesterday, I got the email. You're not even going to believe me. It's that good. Just yesterday, I got the email. I'm not type 2 diabetic. I am at the at-risk A1C level. I'm not type 2 diabetic anymore. I got that email yesterday morning. And so that's huge. I'm still processing that because you label yourself, well, I'm a diabetic. You know what? I'm not a diabetic. And so
Amazing.
that's the fruit of my labor, is that even after I ended the program, I just kept on my track. I just kept pushing, and my self-talk shifted so severely during the program that I kind of made a promise to myself, like, don't go back, don't do it, don't you dare. I was severe with myself in bad ways before, and now I'm tough on myself in good ways, like, no, you're better than that, don't give in. My self-talk has shifted. My food choices have shifted, and I would not ever throw it, just throw it out the window. The Doritos aren't worth that sadness to pick it up again. And I had some 2 weeks ago and they were delicious. I still love them. But then I was like, okay, that was nice. I treated myself. I don't need these anytime again soon. I woke up the next morning like, blah. That's reality. You're still going to want something that you love, but it's going to be in a space where you're like, I ate it. That wasn't actually as great as I remember it. Maybe I'll have it again one day, but it's not like every night of my darn life. Here's another nighttime binge. Here's another nighttime coping, hiding food. I'm so over that. And so, yeah, the weight loss, the diabetes, that's two major things in my life. But it's actually secondary to, I'm touching my heart, like it's all free here. It's all clear. I don't talk to myself roughly at all anymore. And it's literally changed the way I am as a wife, a mom, a coworker, a friend, everything. I like myself a lot. And so when you talk wins, I could overtake this whole conversation, because once you get a couple under your belt, you like that feeling and you wouldn't give them up. So you push yourself and then you get more wins. So we're talking serious stuff here, not just diet and weight.
Absolutely. And I love that you said as a coworker, because for those who don't know this, who haven't heard Melanie's story, Melanie was a stay-at-home mom for her
Decades.
motherhood years. And right when you graduated, that confidence level that you developed was so significant. You made a really wonderful decision for you, for your family, and you decided, I'm going to go apply for these jobs. And I remember you sending me a message after you graduated, and you're like, not only did I apply for these jobs, I got 3 interviews. I think it was 3, or maybe it was 3 job offers. And you're like, and I nailed them. And I now get to pick and choose which one I actually want to go to. Like, you nailed it. You crushed it. And that's confidence, guys. And if you're watching this and you haven't watched the 3 C's to confidence video, like, this is what we're talking about. 3 C's to confidence. We don't start with confidence. You don't wait for confidence to appear before you start on a journey like this. You do the work, you commit to yourself, you apply the tools, you do the inner work, and you really have the support and the encouragement and all this whole process that we're talking about. And ultimately, confidence. Nikki looking in the mirror, yeah, my butt looks big. Like, Melanie, like, you're out in the world now, crushing it. I mean, that's confidence, guys. I love it. Congratulations too on your recent news with your A1C and your diabetes. That's amazing. Really, really good stuff. Jennifer, I know you also have some wonderful wins that I would love for you to share. And it's interesting because I didn't plan this way, but each of you are unique in your own ways. You all have very similar stories, but also quite different. And I kind of love that you all have, slightly different challenges and stories and transformation experiences. So, share a little bit about your journey and your transformations and, how you got to where you are now and where you are now.
Well, I think what's been coming back to the top of my mind throughout this video today, one of the very first things you said to me that I wrote down that stuck with me, it said, you tell me do or do not, there is no try. Because I would say, oh, well, maybe I'll try to do better. Maybe I'll try to eat better. Maybe I'll try this. Maybe I'll try that. And it was easier to let myself off the hook. Like, oh, well, it didn't work. I'll try something else later. So
I
it
can't
was
claim that quote. That's the very famous Yoda. He's a very smart, wise little.
Yeah, but you
little
said
Yoda.
that to me, and that stuck with me. And so when I made the commitment to actually do this and go all in, the self-work, reflecting on things, asking myself the tough questions, and the 10-day reset was huge for me because I found out the sensitivities I had to food. It was probably the first probably a good 4 days. I thought I was going to die. I thought I had the flu. I felt horrible. I didn't hate you, but I very much disliked you at that point because I was like, oh, she's going to kill me. But that was the biggest, huge life changer for me because I found as I added things back in, how the sensitivities that I had, how horrible they made me feel. The fog finally lifted on about day 5, and I started to think and my brain process things like I hadn't done in years. So since then, just determining what foods affected me so negatively and cutting those out, it's been a whole lifestyle change. Don't recognize, the person I was then would never have seen me where I am now. I go work out 3 or 4 or 5 days a week. I, plan food, eat better. Everything doesn't revolve around the chocolate and the chips and the cravings and the eating horrible, stuff at my desk all day just to try to cope with life. I had a lot of autoimmune stuff, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, I was pre-diabetic. I was 1 point away. And so since over the course of this journey, all of my blood work has improved. All of my vitamin levels were severely deficient before. So including prescriptions and vitamins, I took about 40 pills a day when I started this. And now I take 0. From the weight loss, I think I've lost 27 pounds. The weight loss, the exercise, my blood pressure dropped to such an extent that I was getting dizzy taking my blood pressure medicine. It was so low. So I quit that first. And, I just started dropping things as I felt better and got all of my yearly blood work back probably about a month ago. Everything is better and improved and no longer pre-diabetic and no longer high blood pressure. And, just I can cope with life so much better now because it's, that confidence and realizing that you can stick to something for yourself and follow through on something. I mean, that's once you realize the power that you have over your own life and you take that back rather than giving it over to, food or addictions to whatever it might be. That was just huge. Just the change in your mind and your heart. And it just carries over into your whole life in every relationship and the things that you choose to spend your time on.
And I love that, it's been a while. It's been, like I said, you graduated in February 2022. It is now, just for sake of recording, it is now almost October 2023. And to sustain all of those amazing goals, like that, that's it. It's the sustainability. It's the transformation. Anyone can lose weight on any diet. And guess what happens? I think the statistic is somewhere between 96 and 98% of anyone who's been on a diet gains it back. That's the statistic. So sure, can you go on a diet? Can you buy a diet food? Can you restrict your food? Can you over-exercise till you're freaking passing out? Absolutely. You can do it the hard way. You can do it the cheap way. And 96 to 98% will gain it back within a few years. Or within like 1 to 2 years, I think is the statistic. And we're not just talking weight, right? I mean, so it's interesting because you had an experience where you were experimenting with your food sensitivities and, we made some tweaks to your nutrient intake in your food. And Melanie didn't do the reset at all because that's not where she was. And I think that's part of this experience is so customizable to each unique individual and why it's kind of cool that we have 3 different totally unique people here, right? Like Nikki was very, focused on the mindset and the self-love and all of that and made some amazing changes. And Melanie, you crushed your emotional eating and made changes to your stress and to your mindset. And all of a sudden had all of these amazing physical changes and you didn't even do that part. So like, there's so many wonderful things that we can celebrate here together. And I really appreciate you guys sharing your stories. I did want to ask, just in terms of your experiences, many people, especially if they're used to doing like a diet, counting calories, eating juices and cleanses and shakes or whatever, may not quite grasp the concept of what coaching, mentorship, high touch experience, support, community, like what that actually can do and for you in your transformation. Why, taking a course or, following this rule book out of a book, right? Like buying a diet book from Amazon or, again, like doing a 21-day diet program. Why that's not this? And, feel free, maybe we'll just hop around, but like, tell me your unique experiences. Nikki, why don't we go back to you for a second? Like, why and how was coaching and community impactful for you?
The biggest thing for me was that I was in a group where everybody was just like me in a sense. Like everybody was struggling with XYZ, right? Emotional eating, mindset, all these different things. So it was helpful to hear what other people were struggling with. And I specifically remember this time, and I don't remember what the question was, but I remember in my head thinking like, oh, actually, I know what it was, where you have to like eat the piece of food and like smell it and like do it and like just all your senses, right? That's what we were doing. And I was like, what the hell I'm doing here? Like, and I didn't want to ask the question because I didn't want to feel stupid. And I was so thankful because Melanie chimed in and was like, I'm really struggling with this. And I messaged her in the meeting and I was like, thank you for asking, because I was struggling too, but I was too worried I would look dumb because I didn't know or understand that I didn't ask the question. So I really appreciate you asking it. And then we were kind of talking back and forth too, but having those like-minded people in the same area and like proven, like you put yourself in a room with people like you and positive things will come, like that positive mindset and positive things will come. So that was really helpful for me. And I've done other things where I've been in group settings, but what was different because community versus that was it was a two-way street. So like if I had a problem and I brought it up on the coaching call, you were working with me on an individual basis until I felt really good about it, right? In other diets or other programs, it was like, well, here's your answer, let's move on. It's like I never really had felt previously that I was being pushed or that I really got to the root cause, where in this, you work with us one-on-one in that group setting until we feel really good about how we're feeling. And then you follow up with it the next week. So it's not just one and done. It's like, hey, you mentioned this last week. How are you doing now? And that's what was super helpful for me. So not only the women in the group, but just like how the communication worked between you and I and the group was really helpful.
Awesome. Awesome. Jennifer, why don't we, and then also if anyone is watching live, and if you happen to be watching the replay too, and you do have a question, definitely pop it in. All of these ladies are inside of our group and they can always answer your question later on. You can tag them too. I'm sure they would not mind at all. And I'll just kind of put that out there. But if you guys have questions, definitely pop it in the comments, and I'll kind of just keep refreshing my screen just to see if there's any questions. Jennifer, why don't we pop over to you? Tell me a little bit about how, you enjoyed your experience in terms of like coaching and community, why that was part of this transformation for you, how that was helpful for you, maybe why that was different from like something that you did before.
Well, I think trying to operate in a silo by myself and make changes, I didn't have to answer to anybody. I didn't have to examine if I messed up or didn't stick to it. Nobody was really gonna care. So it was a game changer to have the other people. We could share our wins and struggles and get ideas from others of what's working for somebody and what's where we're struggling with. And you were always so just like Nikki said, so responsive and I can't think of a good word, but you made notes. You always followed up with us. You always, you were pushing us and helping us to see things a different way. When we had issues, we had questions, we were getting stuck or stumped somewhere. Like, why don't you think about it like this? Or how about you try this instead? And it was sometimes simple things, sometimes huge things that would make the biggest difference, because it's not something I would think of on my own. So it was great to be in community and have the push from the others, and also a little bit of accountability because you're in there, every week and you want to make the call and you want to have something good to report. You want to, because everybody's celebrating with you. we're all cheering each other on. So that was very helpful.
Amazing. Melanie, let's go over to you. And I know you, before you even start, how community or coaching was helpful for you. I can say that you were helpful to others, because I had numerous reports back from lots of different women who, crossed paths with you about how impactful you were on their journey. Taking me out of the equation as a coach, like just having someone like you, and I know this experience happens all the time, wherever people are crossing paths, there's always someone who resonates with somebody, but you really did have an impact on quite a few ladies that you came across, and just want to recognize that, because you were on your own journey, yet you also were able to show up as a leader for other women and help them. Showing your vulnerability really helped other women experience and do their inner work. So I just want to commend you for that, again. But let's kind of share a little bit. How is coaching and community effective for you?
Oh, yeah, Jessica. Well, thank you. The part that I thought would be a little awkward and uncomfortable was actually the part that I absolutely fell in love with, and it really suited my personality. Go figure. So I'm thinking I'm not going to enjoy that part because that's kind of intimidating. We're talking about a really private struggle topic, hurt deep down, rooted in, going back to when I was a kid. And so if I'm talking to a coach about it, I'm trusting you with it. But then we're on this group call and that's strangers involved in it. And so I was open to it, but I was like, well, I'm not going to enjoy that. And I'm going to kind of filter how I share because that's private stuff. It turned out to be the part I loved the most, and I just loved it. I stopped myself from contacting everybody all the time and sending messages of encouragement. And what comes to mind the most is, as it got going, whether you're a people person or not, a struggling heart recognizes a struggling heart, right? And so I quickly saw the other girls, what they were saying, what they were feeling, what they were struggling with, and I want to say validated, like, oh, I'm not the only fool on this earth that keeps doing the one thing I don't want to do. And I just had moments of, oh, thank goodness, like a whole bunch of women think this way. And these questions and just not understanding what you're doing wrong and why can't you just conquer this already? Apparently, I wasn't the only one on earth thinking these thoughts. And it was just a huge fun relief. And I was like, oh, and my pride went out the window. I would share anything. I even remember tearing up about my dad passing and how him being a big part of my obesity, because he struggled with his obesity every day that I knew him. And that's ultimately how he passed away, was his suffering through diabetes. Guess what I'm not doing, right? So that was huge for me. Guess who's not type 2 diabetic today? But my dad died and suffered because of his diabetes. And so sitting in my bedroom on a Zoom call with strangers, that's absurd that that's where I would start healing. But it validated some stuff, and then connection started. And I love me some connection. My heart, that's my love language. Let's connect. I stopped myself from sending little Facebook messages, even to Nikki. I'm like, okay, well, it's been a couple of weeks. I'll wait a couple of weeks more, or to Sarah, or to her, or to Carrie, or to the other Carrie. And I'm like, no, it's been, I don't want to bother people, but I think about them. That's my personality. I remember each one, what they struggled with, and I went, yeah, I can see that. I've had some of that. Or, ooh, that's a hard one. That's not my story. I understand your struggle. That must be really hard. And yeah, just validation, connection. I wrote it down, and it also gave me some structure. because the girls were waiting and I don't want to miss a call. And I have expectations. I paid for this program and you have expectations too. And those things together just kept pushing me forward. And it's not like you just get a few weeks of this, it was many weeks. And so it was just a combination of each of those things that I just hit this sweet spot of, I love this. I've even said to you, if ever you want me to like, do this for a job, I will just be your messenger girl and check in on lady. I really, really loved that part. And isn't that silly? That's the part that I thought that's going to be uncomfortable. And that's where I was able to have some breakthrough moments. I remember even Nikki, fear of success. I was like, I've never heard of that, but I can see that. Like, we had so many epiphanies among each other. Like, now I have the words of what I've been feeling because you just said it in this call. That was super helpful, super helpful.
And it's so many things just came up for me as you said that, because this concept of fear, is in all of us. Fear is a normal, immediate reaction. We put up a brick wall when we are going to make a change. It's a self-protection mechanism. Usually that's scary. And so courage is recognizing the fear. It's not being fearful. It's actually being fearful, having the fear, recognizing the fear, and doing it anyway. And doing it might be like diving head first, and doing it might also be like dipping your little pinky into it, dipping your little baby toe, one little baby step at a time. We talk about this concept of imperfect action, like one little baby step at a time, right? So for Melanie, that might be like dive head first into the coaching call. It's going to be vulnerable on day one. Amazing. And for others, that might be, I'm going to just like listen. That's cool too. Or I'm going to watch the replay because, it's a little scary for me right now to be there live. Or maybe I'm just going to connect. We have a client success coach now. I'm going to connect with our client success coach. I'm going to connect with Jessica on a private call. And that's okay too. And that courage, that baby steps, however that feels for each of you, and I'm sure you each experience this in different ways. The time frame for how we implement courage and how we implement skills will differ from person to person to person. And then we slowly build the courage over time. And that's when we start to, again, see success, we see results, we start to build momentum. And what do we know happens at the end is that confidence. And that courage can really show up in all these different ways. So what a great group of ladies. You guys are quite amazing. I'm so honored and just privileged to have known each of you, to know each of you, to have worked with each of you. I really, really appreciate each of you being here. Let's just kind of go around one more time. And if you could share one small, tiny bit of advice or one word or one phrase or one thing that you would tell, anyone who's listening right now, that might be resonating with one of you, what would you tell them? Nikki, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I would say, don't let things stop you from being who you want to be. And for too long, I let financials, I let my kids, I let my husband, I let all these other things stand in my way of my happiness. And although I love them all and I want them all there, I needed to not allow that to stop me from getting to where I wanted to be. And just, I'll go back to it again, like clearing my calendar for me, putting myself first and adjusting it so that I can still be there for them, but I have to be there for me first. Like I can't help somebody if I can't help myself first. So really just focus on yourself, and it's okay. Like I'm telling you that it's okay to put yourself first. And I know women, a lot of moms, a lot of working moms it's really hard to put yourself first. And that is probably my biggest advice. Like, it's okay to tell somebody no, because every time you tell somebody else yes, you're telling yourself no. So switch that around. Tell them no so you can tell yourself yes.
I love it. Boundaries. That's amazing. Boundaries, self-care, lots of things that we do together, lots of really great wins that you've had as well. Jennifer, what's one bit of advice or one thing you would tell someone who might be resonating with you?
I think mostly it would be to just invest in yourself because you're worth it. And you're the only one who can control the end result of what your life's going to be. So take charge and make the changes that you want to make so that you can see the end result that you want.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for sharing. Melanie, what about you?
What comes to mind, well, you know me by now, I'm a big sap. What comes to mind is right here, right now, wherever you're at, you want to lose weight. You're just struggling. It's so hard. You're so fearful. All those feelings, all those voices. Right here, right now, before you do anything to move forward or to get better, do better, you're great. You're worthy. You're wonderful and loved right here, right now. Me on my worst day, my fattest, hardest day, I was still like a wonderful human being. And so here I am, better, healthier, stronger, happier. But I was just as wonderful then too. I didn't know. I hadn't shifted some thoughts and organized some thoughts. And so right here, before you even do another step, you're great. You'll be okay. Just start focusing and looking at yourself and take the help, take the step. I dare you to push yourself and see what happens. And even if you fail 10 times, well, guess what? Try number 11 is going to come up. Push yourself. Like that was a big part for me, is that I don't care how hard this is. I won't ever stop getting back up. I won't ever stop pushing myself. I learned that because I finally gave myself one last push and just started a program where I went, well, this is actually working. This feels really good. So you're worthy right now today. But if you begin something helpful and get the help, it feels good to believe that sentence. It feels amazing to believe that, actually. So let me tell it to you, but soon enough you can believe it for yourself. That's huge.
Mic drop. What a great way to end. Well, thank you so much, ladies. I really, really appreciate your time and your openness and, your willingness to come share your stories and experiences with all of these lovely ladies. I thank you so, so, so much for your time, and I hope everyone has an amazing day.